Some people may want to throw things, so no. It's weird, I felt like I had a ghillie suit on. Well, how is everybody? I feel like Nixon at Expo or SpongeBob at the Cartoon Awards. I'm trying to get both audiences here. We have the old crowd and we have the new crowd. I know what you're thinking. Some of you are thinking, why are they letting this troublemaker give a speech? And you kids are thinking, I was where you were at one point, and I was looking and squirming in my seat and looking, and you were thinking like, man, look at that old guy up there. Well, I just want to tell you, like, I'm your future. You're all going to turn into me. Just give it some time. That's right. I thought when I was young, I thought it wasn't going to happen. My parents were old and moldy. And then all of a sudden I started melting, and turning into my parents. So. I want to tell you that I was born in Spokane. I went to school in Spokane. I got married in Spokane. I had kids in Spokane. And you know what that makes me? That's right, a low achiever. Sure, I could have gone off and tried to make a name for myself in a big city like New York or Ritzville or someplace. But I found out early in life that if you have to be very careful not to set the bar too high because you just might bump your head. So you've got to keep that in mind. But I'm proud of my Spokane roots, and I'm especially proud to call myself an alumni of Franklin on this 100th birthday celebration. Let's get it. Yes. A part of me is in this school. In fact, if you go in the gym and look on the west wall, you can still see the name Clark written faintly in chalk way up above where the chin-up bar used to be. They almost didn't let me graduate because of it. Principal Hanson said she has a toothbrush, and afterwards I'm going to have to get up there and clean it off. But this is a great school and a great place. I love every brick and worn banister in this school. Some of my favorite memories are of events that took place right here at Franklin. I remember the first time I was old enough to finally get a real desk. And by real, I mean those old ancient wooden things with the inkwell in it and the groove for your pencil, and they had iron things on the sides, and they were like antiques when I was a kid. But the school district didn't have a lot of money, but I was so excited to get this old wooden desk that I immediately began carving my name in the top of the desk with some sharp implement. It might have been a protractor or a toothpick, I don't know. And I remember what I wrote. I wrote Doug Clark, famous. Really. And then one of those smart girls, the smart girls in your classes, you always know them. There's always some smart girl that does all her homework, walked by and she looked at it and said, "You misspelled famous." And that moment, I first learned to dislike editors. And that's carried with me into my career at the newspaper. They're troublemakers, and they're always trying to correct greatness. I called my mom and I asked her what she remembered about my time at Franklin, and she said, "I was just too worn out having to go up there and talk to your teachers every day." She suffered, I tell you. I had her up there. She should have been on staff, really. But what a great school. My kids, Ben and Emily, are Franklin alumni. Emily couldn't make it today, but my son, Ben, is here. Where are you, Ben? Stand up. And there's Ben. Put your hat off. He didn't get my hairline. He's a handsome kid. No, I don't think it's going to go. I think he takes after his grandfather. Over the years, I've interviewed a number of Franklin alumni for my column that appears in the newspaper. I interviewed Frank Omi, who was at Franklin from 1919 to 1927, and he got a big write-up in the paper in 1927 because he was the city's best marble shooter. They used to have, where the playground up there was, they used to have marble contests every recess. And marbles were the video games of 1927, so you can see what happened. Maybe they're more like online poker, I don't know. I interviewed Joan Saylor, who was at Franklin. She was in a play as a child with another student named Dawn, and it was 1943. Dawn played the woodchopper, and Joan was the fairy princess. And Dawn and Joan got married right after attending Lewis and Clark High School. You know, that's the kind of memories this place has. The thing is that everybody I've ever talked to about Franklin positively loves this place. Franklin is far more than just an old and worn institution of learning. It's a living, breathing piece of Spokane educational history. And I hope I never see anyone try to replace this school with a modern structure. Let's hear that. Franklin should be preserved and cherished much like they did with Lewis and Clark. And I'm betting the thousands and thousands of Franklin alumni that are probably scattered all over the world, I bet they all agree with me to save this place. As for my favorite Franklin memory, here it is. In 1963, I was 12, and I moved into the 7th grade, and I met my new teacher. His name was Don Kolb. He was 24 years old. He was this lanky, thin athlete who had been a star baseball player and outfielder. He played at North Central High School on an undefeated team. He went to Eastern, which was a college back then and not a university, where he was an all-conference and he was also MVP his junior year. After college, the Yankees offered Mr. Cole a $10,000 signing bonus to play on one of their farm teams. Now, $10,000 in 1964 or 63 was pretty good money in those days. But get this, Don Cole turned down the Yankees so he could teach me. How about that? To become a teacher. This was his second teaching job, but his first in Spokane. His first Spokane assignment was in 7th grade with teaching a hellion named Doug Clark and all his classmates. And believe me, I was a troubled kid. I was running wild, and I was vandalizing things and kind of living a wild life. And Mr. Kolb's influence really changed the way I started thinking. He was tough but fair. He set standards, taught me to use my wits instead of my fists, and he changed me as a person. And I'll never forget, I went to lunch with him a while back and he said, "Doug, anytime I can keep a kid like you out of prison, it makes me feel 20 feet tall." I mean, I was doing a lot of fighting in those days. I was a playground bully, and they sent me down to the district to get evaluated once, you know. I took a bunch of tests, and I asked my mom, what did they find? And she said, all I found was you're just full of way too many ideas. So this is my real memory of Franklin. As much as I love the bricks and the banisters, and as much as I love its place in history, it's the concerned and dedicated and loving teachers that make a building into a school. Thank you.